Hey folks, welcome to Rising Nomad, and today we're going to talk about conscious communities and the certain kind of issues and hesitance that some of us feel when participating in them. Greetings from the island of Koh Phangan. Today I'm joined by Tal. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. And basically, this is one of the main reasons that people like us want to live in places like this, is because there's these vibrant communities of foreigners who are super open-minded and exploring different ways of life and being and consciousness and all this sort of stuff. But we choose to live in places like this, but there's also issues with this. So,
there are.
I mean, what's your general perception of the conscious community?
My general perception is it's a bubble of escapism that's really amazing. If you had too much in, whatever business city or Western culture that people come from, they want an escape from that, from the hustle and bustle, from the, capitalism bombarding them with advertisements and forcing them to want manufactured desires and whatnot. And a lot of people, they come to this island, Koh Phangan. It's beautiful. It's, has nice beaches, has a really nice community, but it is another Western bubble. It's the antithesis of that culture, but is still chained by a lot of the problems that they escaped as well. It exists here as well in a different way. And we'll explore some of those ideas. I think it's a great place. I prefer living here a lot more than, in Toronto or Madrid or Belgrade or whatever, big Western city, whether it's in Europe or North America. But it's not perfect,
Yeah, I love those hippie vibes. I love the laid back stuff. Let me tell you, I love people doing yoga, breath work, all sorts of meditation, ecstatic dance, and you name it. I love the, healthy food restaurants that you come across. I love the sort of back to basics, get in touch with myself sort of ethos of a lot of these things. But there's just some weird attitudes, and maybe some of them are a hangover from that sort of stage of capitalist society that a lot of us are escaping from as we transition to a more earthy, down-to-earth, collectivist green stage. I'm invoking spiral dynamics if anybody knows it. So the orange stage is capitalist, green is the one after that, and it's getting back in touch with stuff. But the name conscious community itself, don't you feel it's a little bit snobby that people feel that their consciousness is somehow superior to the consciousness of other human beings, to the consciousness of this banana tree, to the consciousness of all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
That's a little problematic. I feel cringy even using the word conscious community because, it comes loaded with people feeling that they've reached the be-all and end-all of stages of human consciousness, which likely isn't true, but it's great that they're exploring different stuff. So it's a little bit of a snobbery. And that brings me to a lot of the people who come to a place like this are materially very successful, including myself. I would count myself as a sort of upper middle class Western snob, but they are really separating themselves from other people with a certain sort of snobbery by calling themselves conscious, by branding themselves as, I'm vegan and I'm this and other people are less than me because of that. So that snobbery kind of bothers me. Yeah.
And people use that snobbery or, the idea of consciousness to sell workshops, to sell experiences, to sell, there's a certain element of conscious consumerism here on the island. And some people, they know how to do breath work in a way that can, help people. They know how to deal with trauma in a way that can help people. And I'm not against that.
Yeah.
That's great. But there are also a lot of people that use consciousness as almost a predatory nature to either, gain capital from people, even if they don't believe in what they're doing, or with some of the tantric communities, older people tend to use spiritualism and their so-called understanding of various concepts to, do things to people that they might wouldn't have wanted to do otherwise. And I think that's problematic as well. And you see that a bit on the island.
There's a little bit of a chance for over commercialization, and I guess the cliche would be these life coaches you run into on Facebook sometimes who are basically, if you look into the situation, they're just looking to have their next coaching client closed for $3,000 to $5,000 US so they can live on Bali for a couple more months.
Yeah.
And you run into that here, but among those people there's lots of really really sincere and genuine people who are doing really good work, and I don't really see a problem with charging money for that. It's just when the sort of capitalist necessity of making that money overrides and corrupts the values of that sort of offering. But you see it a lot. You see, it is an issue. And I think the bigger issue is that we're in a strange transition where people are coming from this capitalist world and all the stuff they needed to do to succeed at that and have enough space to realize that wouldn't make them happy, and then they end up in a place like this. But as soon as they feel the least bit threatened, they regress into their more individualistic and survival strategies of sort of like being a little bit scammy to make money and wanting to gratify their individual ego and all that sort of stuff that we're used to from the capitalist world. People regress into that when they feel threatened, and it's not just like all like Om Shanti Om all the time in here. You have these sorts of battles that can take place with that, and a lot of the people who come here are coming with a outsider mentality. As you said, it's like socially dysfunctional as a bubble. So we're coming as misfits and outsiders. I would definitely fall into that. I felt like a misfit in Canada. I moved to Serbia. Now I live here half the year. And you have a lot of psychological complexes that come with that. And it's easy to offend people. And everybody's a little bit out there and a little bit dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
That's the word you use, dysfunctional.
Yeah.
What's an example of that?
I mean, there's a lot of examples you see here of dysfunctional people, but I think most of them is letting their egos take control over them and using consciousness as a way to pretty much think that they're better than other people.
Yeah.
And people that are not as conscious, for example, on the spectrum, are not as good as other people that are more conscious, and consciousness has a different definition for a lot of people. It's not, a very clear-cut thing. It's more of an umbrella term of many different practices. And I think, this dysfunction is a lot of people being together with the idea of consciousness, uniting them, but with having very different ideas of what that consciousness is and creating a hierarchy of who's more and who's less conscious. And I find that really dysfunctional.
And kind of like if you're really a down-to-earth person who really likes meeting people of all different types, it kind of becomes a bit too strict of a dogmatic bubble that people are living in places like this.
Sometimes, some conscious people, not all, a few of them, they have so much of their own words and own ideologies that I find it hard to connect or even understand them. They might talk about things like chakra alignment and Shanti energy and things like that. And I understand those concepts, and I think that if people talk about those things with a deep understanding of, let's say, Tantra, of what chakras are, then it makes sense. But a lot of people throw those terms into situations that don't really fit under that, or that's all they talk about, and it's hard to connect to those people, I find. They live somewhere in a different world than me.
Yeah, and the worlds that people go into here, I find it's a little bit, people can be too obsessed with their own trauma and suffering, or on one hand too obsessed with that on this healing journey and a whole ecosystem of different detoxes and coaching and therapy sessions that really focus a lot on just being a traumatized human being and having all this shit to work with. And I think it's a obsession that you can quickly lose the map of what your life is all about and how you can contribute to society. And then on the flip side of that, there's a lot of people who are just like so peaceful and happy with meditation, happy with everything, and they're not really taking next steps in their lives to actually achieve anything. And me personally, what I would really like to see is a lot more of the values of these types of communities, of being, aware of your emotions, aware of your traumas and stuff like that. But I'd like to see that transformed and, being able to be peaceful and meditate and bring wisdom from there. But I'd like to see that transforming the world in a greater way. And a lot of the time, people are just wallowing in this space and they're not really taking the next steps to build systems that are going to bring more of this out to the world and building content and stuff that is going to change the average lives of the normal people around the world, because either they're too obsessed with their own trauma or they're just sitting there way too satisfied with life of basically doing nothing.
Yeah, and I think they're pushed into one or the other depending on which workshop or which spiritual leaders they follow, because a lot of the people here are very trauma focused, and that works for some people, not for everybody. And a lot of other people are focused on pushing that away and just, enjoying life, being grounded, being here now, and not focusing on trauma that was in the past or that might be fear of the future. It depends on who they follow or what kind of workshops they go to.
Also, an issue with like a sort of tribal collectivist mentality, which comes with that sort of like being in those spaces, and you're likely to just take your beliefs from the collective, believe what other people are believing, and sort of parrot sort of different notions and stuff without really understanding. So it's like almost like a religion, this kind of way of being a spiritual person on the island. You see it in the way that people tend to dress, in the way that people talk about different notions, and
when I arrived to the island 3 years ago, I think I fit under that category where I was, a bit younger, and I believed everything that I heard, and I did many different workshops. Like every single week I would do 2 or 3 different workshops, and I really embodied all of the terms and the mentalities and the spirits and even the ideologies of a lot of those things, and I took it as truth. And now that I'm here, a bit older and with a different perspective, I take everything with a grain of salt, where I don't necessarily want to believe something because somebody told it to me, unless I have something that I feel, whether it's like something that I do and then it activates a feeling within me, or something that I can believe on a deeper level that makes sense to me logically, or that, so I need more than just somebody telling me something. But 3 years ago, I was, Mr. Koh Phangan guy, and I believed everything.
And you can, as we said, you can be sort of taken advantage of by people who might have nefarious intents and agendas, and really be out for themselves when they are sort of parroting and building on this language of community and sort of consciousness and all that sort of stuff. So it's dangerous because if you just believe what the crowd believes, then somebody's going to be controlling the crowd, and they might not have the best interest of the crowd in mind. And lots of people, like, to further on this subject of like dogmatism and sort of like people not understanding through their own direct experience, there's lots of just people who are really out there with this spiritual nonsense, to the point where a lot of the time you'll meet people on the island who are going by a different name and won't even tell you what their real birth name was and stuff like that. And it's a little bit like, okay, cool if you want to have a nickname, but I don't know, if it's some Sanskrit name that nobody knows what it means, I mean, you might be removing yourself from your actual cultural roots in a way, and getting so disconnected from a lot of the stuff, like while still embodying personality and worldview and way of a philosophy that's really just way too Western centric. Like a lot of people don't really care about the cultures in places that they're living, like Thailand. They don't care. They're just, I'm a Western person. Now I'm going by a Sanskrit name, and I'm just gonna behave how people in Canada, like. It's
they lose a sense of their individuality when they do that. And I also feel like from one side that the idea of masculinity is something that's really not very strongly embodied in a lot of these communities, where
everybody's so in this emotional healing stage, meditating, collectivism, and all this sort of stuff. Like, yeah, for me, I don't know, I'm a pretty manly man, and I like to be able to express my opinion, my values, and really put that stuff out there. And I find it kind of runs against the grain of a lot of this dogma community, consciousness, believe this, be like this, and you'll be accepted by us sort of mentality. I can jive with the community, but if I'm actually going to like, yeah, it's a negotiation, but I feel like there's some sort of masculinity that's a little bit absent in this, meaning like I am going to, yeah, use my personality, yeah, to embody what it is to be a man and what's strong about a man, whereas everybody here is so obsessed about, I don't know, some sort of notion of, I don't know where I'm going. Do you get what I'm saying at all?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I understand I'm talking on a potential minefield, but yeah, just being a strong man and being at peace with the aggressiveness inside my soul. It's something that has been useful in my life. And when everybody's as avoidant of the realities of life as a bubble like this allows people to be, that sort of truth speaking, that sort of directness, that sort of emotional and willingness to engage in sort of a dialogue which is not necessarily always agreeing with everybody. Yeah, that tends to be not something that's appreciated here.
Yeah.
And yeah, people tend to be pretty flaky on here. It's also the same thing, you know, I'm very masculine, coming from a sort of like German background where it's like be on time, follow through on your word, whereas everybody's here sort of like...
Everyone's here on Koh Phangan time, you know,
yeah.
Come late or don't come, or the people, they don't like to commit to things here because they want to feel if they want to do something at the time or not.
Yeah.
And if they do, they come. If not, then they don't. And yeah, people, myself included here, like I'm less likely to be on time here or commit to things than I do in the West, just because of how, I don't know, chill and peaceful things are, but it is harder to make concrete plans with people.
And it will hold back the place in developing and attracting like people who actually want to build stuff, to be in that atmosphere. Everybody's sort of flaking and going, yeah, you know, trying to get somebody to do something, let's say help you film a video or something like that. They don't show up. They're like, ooh, my energy is bad today, so I'm not going to show up. Or they just like, whatever. If you want to achieve something in life, I believe that you have to have a time and a place and the ability to execute that. I try to have a balance as well. Like I try to have my weekends, like Saturday and Sunday, at least Sunday, for that sort of flow. You know, yes, I want to do that today, I'm coming. Or no, I don't. But if I tell you Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., I'm gonna be there unless there's a really big thing that happens. But other people here, not so much. So this will hold back the island in business, in getting things done, in forming relationships, in building a strong infrastructure of community that will help people come here and do great work and really feel a part of the place in one aspect. And it means that the ideas that are made here will spread slower into the world.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's just harder to get stuff done when people are flaky. So yeah, it sort of lacks leadership, I find, in that next steps. Everybody gets here and then that's it. Whereas like the next steps in my life are kind of like making community and making content that spreads the message that you can come to a place like this and you can have a great life and you can work remotely, continue to build like a huge business empire from your laptop in a beautiful place like this. So I want to see more of that, and that's why I make these videos, to attract people who also feel the same. But I find when people are trying stuff on the island, there's a lot of what I call hippie hater pants that people put on, whereas like they're talking behind their backs about each other, and everybody's friendly to your face. I mean, I've seen something similar in Serbia, which is a sort of a more traditional blue society, but here hippie hater pants, yeah, it's like criticizing people who are doing various workshops. I mean, you can say that we're criticizing the community a lot in this video.
We are, yeah.
Right, but I'm not targeting out individual people. And I'm trying to draw a boundary of what I want to see in the future and what I don't. But I find that people here are much more petty and ego-based in the way that they promote themselves, are seeking out relationships with other people. And it's interesting to see, but it's just lots of gossip, lots of, oh, this person's doing this and this person's like that. Maybe I just met a few people who are like this, but yeah. It's overall, I feel that the community is struggling to define its identity as a community in a certain way, and going in between all these different types of characters and what they're bringing, what baggage they're bringing here and stuff like that, which I'm sure I have some too that I brought into videos like this. But overall, let's end this on a positive note. This is a great place to live. It's super convenient. It's super easy to build a nice life here. It doesn't cost a huge amount of money. There's all sorts of interesting, fascinating people that you can meet
Every day. I
everywhere.
meet very interesting people.
So yeah, I think that's essentially just a question of coming to a place like this and figuring out who you want to hang out with and getting in touch with those people. And that's what we are doing at Rising Nomad as well, as a concept of having a community online with content like this, which is attracting people like you who have watched this to the end. And if you like this video, of course, subscribe to the channel. You know that part. And the like button.
Yeah.
You know the drill. But you can also join our Facebook group, and we'll put a link in the description to that. And thanks a lot for watching. Thanks, Tal, for joining me on this video.
Of course, yeah.
Great. Bye, guys.
Bye.